call the meeting to order and pick up where we left off, I think. Unless, Andrew, would you like to start with the
Sure thing.
the lowdown on hybrid?
You got it. Thank you all for joining us for this Cpdc hearing of Monday, February 13th. We do have a hybrid setup this evening, so we have some Zoom participants. Right now, currently no one's in the in-person audience, so for those of you on Zoom, we do just ask that you stay on mute until acknowledged by the chair for comment. We will stick to our standard procedures of the discussions will open, the applicants will present their application to the board. The board themselves will do comment and question before opening up to public comment. And so we do just again ask that you stay on mute until acknowledged. And if and when you have a question or comment, please either raise your hand or use the raise hand feature on Zoom and we'll look to acknowledge you. Outside of that, I don't have to give any announcements to the in-person attendees. I think I'm good, Heather. Oh, I should add though that this is being recorded and broadcasted by RCTV as well.
Okay.
Except when we go into executive session.
Right.
Okay.
Right, so let's start with the first item on the agenda, which hopefully we can wrap up tonight, and that is the minor site plan review for the Birch Meadow Complex, the continued public meeting on that. It seems like there's been a lot done, and is there someone to present on that this evening?
Anybody online?
Yeah.
There we go.
Good on. Yeah. Steve Chris Foley with Activitas, Mark Novak's with us, and Megan Donahue's on as well. So, Andrew, I'm not sure, are you pulling up that?
Yep, pulling it up right now. I have your civil plans and the rendering.
Awesome. So yeah, just following up from the previous two hearings, we've addressed the items that were reviewed.
Yes.
Excellent.
So the items that we had were the, is that new curb cut that's essentially the exit that's over by the Coolidge crosswalk. And we had another question, I believe, about how the buses would be parked and if that requires striping. Would you like to review that? Would you like to review how that went? I believe there was a meeting with all of the school staff, and maybe for the benefit of the whole commission, they can get an update on that.
Yep, back January 23rd, something like that. We met with the school department, the principals of both schools, as well as the police department, to go over that curb cut exit. And went over the pros and cons and ultimately decided to keep it there as an exit only that will be closed off with a vehicular swing gate, and that will be opened for events, specific events or games, and the school or whoever's in charge of that event will handle opening and closing that. So from a day-to-day operations, it'll be closed and there will be a sign on it keeping that area in front of it clear for no parking. And then the other item of the buses, which I had responded to Andrew, it's not intended to be anything permanent or striped out. Same thing, this will be kind of a case-by-case use of either stacking a couple buses for a smaller event or game, and then in another scenario, if there was a bigger track meet, you would essentially kind of just close off that chunk and you could stack 4 or more buses. And again, in those scenarios, that gate would be open, exit only, to let that flow.
So the reason why I asked that question about buses is, right, when buses are used in the parking lot that's controlled by the school, that's one thing, right? They can set any sort of regulations, tell students, tell teachers, you can park here, you can't park here. This is, in essence, a community parking lot, or it functions as that, and I want people to think about how they're gonna try and regulate it on days that they need to, right? I mean, even this, and it's fine, it's not that big of a deal, right? I mean, I think it's doable, it's not a reason to change anything, but, right, there's those 4 spots that need to be blocked in, maybe, and someone's gonna be thinking, okay, how do we regulate those 4 spots on the days that, you know, the athletic department is going to take over this parking lot, right? People at the Y, people at Coolidge have no idea about what else is going on in the high school. So, right, we just need to think about how that's, right, how that's going to function.
And where's the gate located on the outgoing?
Yeah, the gate, can you see? Yeah. The gate's there.
Okay.
So I think that, right, that will work because they'll be in control of that gate and, you know, presumably not open it up until after Coolidge is out. I will trust that that's, right, I think everyone is sort of, right, the conversation was had, so I know that people know that the issue's there, so it's great. Great. I'm glad that, right, that everyone got to put their 2 cents in and come up with a plan that seems to work, so.
Awesome.
Thank you. So for the spaces that would be blocked in, does that then become like a town responsibility to say, like, put no parking cones in there earlier in the day? I guess this might be as much of a question for the town as it is for consultants about how do you manage that?
Yeah, I don't think it's a question for Activitas, right? This is really a question, or really an awareness between you know, for the school department, that they're gonna have to come up with a way when they plan on blocking people in, you know, knowing that those people that park there are not necessarily associated with the school.
Right.
And they don't have control over it. And the police will get a call if they get blocked in, right? That'll happen once or twice, probably, guaranteed, right? So I just want people to think about that. In this, right, this works because it's only those 4 spaces, right? As opposed to a whole, you know, try to take over the,
Right. Like what I had originally in my mind's eye, I thought that was going to be the space for the buses. So this diagram helps me tremendously. Thank you.
Yes, as did I.
And just so you know, for most large events, they start very early in the morning, sometimes as early as 8 for preparation, not the event itself, but you've got the volunteers showing up, setting up the parking lot, setting up
Talking
everything
football
else.
games.
Oh,
Track meets.
Track meets, yeah, track meets, but also
They start
football
early.
games, yeah, so,
well, the football games would mostly be the Friday nights, correct?
Yeah.
Yeah, that's when you'd have the issue.
yes,
The Saturday stuff starts early and they'd be
Right.
blocking.
right,
Okay.
yeah. Yeah, I mean, I think it's all manageable, I agree,
Yeah.
it just it needs to be managed.
Yes, it does.
I think we agree with the management need too, but also I think when we were designing this, we were also envisioning the space as drop off and pick up only. So when they dropped off a team, then they would circle out of the parking lot and then go park someplace else, and then come back after the event was over to pick back up. So that was just another thought, and it all depends on how the town
Yeah.
decides to manage the lot.
Yeah.
Right. So that becomes a management question. Any other comments from the CPDC?
Not on this?
On this or the entire project?
On the entire project. on the questions that we had outstanding.
I did see on the documents provided that we have a type S1, S2, and S3 lighting.
Yeah. That's correct.
Can you walk us through those? Because, well, okay, so there is a height on these of, for S1, the MR1 LEDs, the height of 6 and 3/8 inches. So it's just the height of the light, it's not the height of the pole. Thank you.
Correct.
So what's the plan for these? Are they 6
So
feet?
these are the parking lot fixtures.
Okay,
And I believe, I'm trying to keep this straight up. It says the height in that chart on the electrical plan.
Yes, it did. It's gonna take me a second to get to. Sorry, did I go too far, Steve?
No, I think that was it.
There's a table that included notes on the height. Which I do have. Yeah, I found the parking lot lighting on the notes on the electrical plan to be 10 to 12 feet, although they're also mounted on 3-foot concrete pedestals, a total height of 15 feet for some of the
Okay.
fixtures.
and do we know if they're also on the same controls as the lights for the field? Or are they perpetually on?
They'll be on their own control separate of the field, and they can be set to timers that the school or the town wants them to be on or off.
Okay,
And I had a question on one of the lighting sheets. I think it was the type S3, where on the, yeah. Can you scroll down, Andrew, where the color temperature here, these are the ones that would be on the path, right? And the color temperature that's circled there is 4,000 K. For the International Dark Sky Association, the top is 3,000 K. So is that something you'll do? I think that's especially important in the pathways.
Yeah. I already had that conversation. I forgot to mention that in the response. So yes, those will be adjusted.
Okay. Any other comments from CPDC?
No. None from me.
All right.
and there was
Any-
nothing that could be done on the pole in the pathway?
Nothing, unfortunately.
Yeah, no, sorry. It holds some critical electrical, and in order to move it, we'd be basically redoing everything around the softball field. And so the one thing we did do is over at the distribution panel for all of the walkway lights and stuff like that, everything is set up for the future to redo all the lighting over at softball, but just at this time, it wasn't in the project budget.
And when will that phase take place?
This is a good question. It's not up to us. It's really up to the people of Reading. Fidel and Jenna and the crew working on this project. We went through a whole public engagement process in order to identify these phases. I think the goal. Oh, there's Fidel. I assume the goal would be very much the same for future phases of development at Birch Meadow.
So, I will say that, it's great, it's a great, there's a public process that looked at the different phases. This part, the softball part of the plan is shown as the vision, right? So that's the third phase, the third and final phase. I'll just note, this has not been a community priority. I'm stating a fact, that it's taken 15 years to get the pavement done for the former Imagination Station parking lot, and it took a pandemic and money from federal funds to get that done. So, I would not, this is personal opinion, unless the town has a different set of priorities, that's just never going to get done. Just because look how long it's taken to get the parking lot done,
And
which has been a priority. So
the question is that a safety hazard?
I think it is, but others don't. So I'm not gonna.
And is there padding on it?
There is padding on it.
Okay, well, that's at least partway there.
Mr. Maltese.
Thank you. So the I don't have the benefit of in Reading for as long as this project has been on the docket, right? I will say that I have heard a lot of momentum recently, right? And this first phase, obviously the work began in 2020, right? And Jenna and her team, along with a lot of other people, did do a lot of engagement, right? A lot of surveys, a lot of forums, and that's how we got here. In terms of the future, obviously we're going to do the same, right? It's going to be we have a master plan that we are going to ask the community for their priority, but the priority is going to be around Birch Meadow. And I'll say that we have a capital plan that has had Birch Meadow for some time, and it has always been on FY25. So in fiscal year 25, there is $2.5 million that has been there for some time. Luckily, we were able to move this up through ARPA, and that on its own. I mean, took an incredible amount of advocacy, right? I mean, Jenna and a lot of people went to speak to the ARPA committee, right, and really advocated for that funding. I mean, it wasn't just handed to us, if you will.
Yeah, I mean, my point is, that it did take a lot of effort to get this funding to do this part of the project. It's not a foregone conclusion that the town meeting is going to, or the town itself is going to put this as a priority against, anything else. History says they won't, that maybe things have changed, right? We don't know. But the public outreach that happened in the past was that the softball component was the last component. There's a lot of other good things in the plan, and they probably should be over and above. Absolutely. There's a lot of good stuff, a lot of momentum, as Fidel said, and a lot of good things I think that can happen in phase 2. These polls are just not going to be part of that next phase. So.
Okay.
I would say that I know a few folks on this call are part of town meeting, right? I mean, make it be known, right? That make it be heard. That if this is really the priority that we need to rally the community around. We're all in. I will tell you that in FY25 there is a placeholder for $2.5 million in borrowing for a next phase of Birch Meadow, right? Obviously, I can't control the economy or how town meeting will ultimately vote, but it is the administration's full intention to proceed with that second phase in FY25, to the tune of $2.5 million.
Excellent, thank you.
So that's good to keep in mind. Yeah, make sure you put it in there.
Heather, we can't hear you.
No, you're very
Very
quiet.
quiet.
Very quiet.
It was just like whisper from our hands up,
Barely.
Okay, well, here
That's
we
much
go.
better.
There we go.
Just this very good mic that only picks up what you're talking and not, now I have to talk like this. Okay, so when it comes time to bring this up at town meeting, hopefully there'll be some good outspoken folks for the priorities at the Birch Meadow Complex. Let me pause. Any other comments from CPDC? Because then we can see if there are comments from the from participants from the audience.
Andrew, I assume Ryan is not on the call, correct?
He is not tonight.
Okay.
Okay, and we do have a couple people here. Are there any comments on this Birch Meadow Complex plan?
From the
Hi,
public?
I'm Jenna Fiorenti. I'm the Community Services Director, and prior to that, the Recreation Administrator, and prior to that, the Program Coordinator in Recreation. So I've been here a very long time, and I've had the honor of working with Activity Task for the past few years on the conceptual design and on this project. And I just wanted to thank you all for your feedback on the project, and I want you to know that I've been working very closely with Andrew the past couple of months, and moving forward, what we will do in phase 2 is collectively as a working group come together and do exactly what we did before, talk about our priorities in recreation, also get feedback from the community, have some focus groups, so really do the community engagement piece again. And the biggest thing that I told Andrew was that we would love him to be a representative on our working group or have a member of the CPDC on that working group moving forward. So that way we have your expertise and your input all before we get to, these approval stages.
Yeah.
Oh, can you hear me?
Yeah, yes.
So Andrew, maybe that's something we can discuss at a future meeting. I don't know how
Absolutely.
how often the working group meets. I know you're probably pretty stretched, and as are we. But we are happy to give, I'm sure, input at earlier stages. And thank you, Jenna. Thank you, Jenna. And thank you to the folks at Activitas for the good work on this. Okay, should we take a look at the decision then?
Sure.
Oh wait, any other comments from the audience? I don't see any hands raised.
I do not either. I'll pull up the decision. So briefly to run through it, we do include a list of all our submitted documents, including the revised plans, all renderings submitted up to date based on the info from last week. We do also include any staff comments and comments from stakeholders like the school department, which we noted here. Going on to the findings for the project, so just why it's applicable to a minor site plan review and how this process started, the zoning of the site, which is an S15 district, although this is an educational and really this is a recreational use, So we briefly described the existing conditions here of the former previously Imagination Station parking lot and some of the path complex that exists to date. And then really the overview of this current proposal, which includes the parking lot improvements into 55 formally striped spaces, including ADA accessible spaces and EV charging spaces. We also noted the curbing used throughout the plan and the curb cuts and their proposed regulations for access.
The proposed EV charging spots aren't the 4 that are gonna be blocked by the buses, are they?
No, they are not. They are off to the right. Just making sure I didn't miss anything. We described the path system that will be expanded and improved to reach further into the complex and some of the amenities proposed along such. The lighting fixtures, which we've discussed a lot in this process. I did note that they were nighttime friendly fixtures. I didn't see the exact dark sky compliant label seal, so I did see the nighttime friendly fixtures. I did include that description. Landscape and drainage that is proposed within the lot. And then briefly, we have discussed the new structures that are being proposed with this improvement, which is the restroom and storage facility, as well as a lacrosse practice wall. There will be a series of trash and recycle bins for use. The applicant and working group is working with the DPW on snow storage and how that will be managed and where. And this project did receive approval from the Conservation Commission and has permitting going forward through them. So the conditions are fairly standard for a minor site plan. We did include construction hours that we're holding ourselves to and the same that we do for most applications. And then we noted that the working group will continue to work with Ryan, DPW, Public Safety, and others on any parking lot or right-of-way improvements in the future related to this lot, and whether that be for traffic regulations that need select board approval, painting and striping, etc. And then again, just landscaping being maintained in perpetuity as we always do. So if the board notices anything or has other conditions they feel might be warranted, certainly happy to discuss.
I have a question. Since we brought it up, I may as well see it through. But when it says nighttime friendly, what exactly does that mean? And Andrew, maybe you can help me, because I remember that oftentimes in our conditions we condition that outdoor lighting should be dark sky compliant, which is what I'm familiar with through what's in the International Dark Sky Standards. And I'm just a little bit concerned that nighttime friendly, I search it, it's like a trademark name that might be tied to sunlight, so I'm not exactly sure what it means.
Steve might know a little bit more than me, so dark sky compliant is generally, it's what we use downtown and to protect abutting residential uses from uplighting and illumination that might impact their residency. So it could potentially be less of a concern here in the park complex, but dark sky compliant is, as you noted, there's an international organization that certifies certain fixtures for their shielding and cutoff capacity, generally downward facing lighting, full cutoff, and protection again to those abutting uses. Night sky friendly, based on what I could kind of find, was just down face lighting with some shielding and cutoff. It might not exactly have received the international dark sky compliant seal, but it is in an effort to kind of match those requirements. Steve, did I get any of that wrong?
Yeah, no, we nailed it. And based on my conversation with the manufacturer late last week, really in this case, for these fixtures, the difference is that warmth. So getting it at or below 3,000 will do it.
Okay, so
the nighttime friendly is kind of deceiving of how they advertise it, but yeah, all the guidelines for meeting dark sky compliance. It's there, it's the lighting warmth needed to be changed.
Okay, so I mean, I agree, you know, we aren't so worried about abutters and say the parking lot, the abutters of school, but for the park area, it would be worthwhile. Would you be averse to having it be dark, specifically dark sky compliant, since nighttime friendly seems to be more kind of a looser term? I think the dark sky compliant is the 3,000 K for temperature. I think that's the change, or somehow specify that that's the intention there.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
And I'm concerned mostly about the pathway, what's going through the wooded and otherwise dark area. So we want the downcast light for safety, but we don't want it lighting up and causing glare for neighbors to be looking at across the way, where right now they look at dark. When your tennis court is on
Mm-hmm.
When you're done your update, let me know.
I can work on this. We have a general condition, as you noted, Heather, that I can pull from another decision to word that correctly.
Okay, great, thank you.
Page 3, 4C.
3, 4C.
Second line on my version says, lighting fixtures you've got nighttime friendly. Who changed it from dark sky compliant?
That was me this morning, and I didn't want to upload a fourth one for you guys. So just after.
So let's change that back to dark sky compliant.
Yeah.
And where you had on page 4, condition number 4,
Mm-hmm.
Minimize impacts to traffic, and I would like to add in and surrounding neighborhood. Okay.
Other comments or questions?
I don't have any from other members of the CPDC.
Not
I don't.
from me.
I do not.
Okay, should we take a vote? Our secretary resigned.
Good.
Anybody else like to make a motion?
Andrew is looking at me. This is a motion to approve the minor site plan review for 0 Birch Meadow Drive to include an increase of over 50 square feet of gross floor area in the new floor area, an increase in impervious area and associated parking improvements as presented in the application materials enumerated below. We do hereby vote.
I think you can stop there and.
I'm going
Yeah.
to.
Second.
We're gonna vote now, right? A second?
I'll second.
Okay. All those in favor?
Heather, I believe where you are remote, we need to take a roll call
I was
vote.
about to say the same.
About that, okay. So we'll do a roll call vote. Let's see, Pam,
Yes.
Tony,
Yes.
John?
Yes.
Yes.
Right.
As amended, right?
Yep. All right, thank you, project team. I'll get you that decision as soon as
Yeah.
tomorrow.
Thank you.
Thanks for all your work.
Everybody,
I think we
you're
ended up in a good spot.
Thank you.
Yeah.
It's a good plan.
Bye.
Oh, what a cute little one. They don't stay small for long, I'll tell you.
All right.
Okay, so the next item will be luckily quick, is that we have a request to continue the public hearing again at 25 Haven Street for the 40-hour plan review, correct?
Yes, and if you don't mind reading that into the record, and then maybe a motion to follow.
This is a letter to Heather Klisch, Chair, CPDC. DSGD application for 25 Haven Street, Reading, Mass. Please accept this letter on behalf of the 25 Haven Street LLC requesting to continue the public hearing on this application, currently scheduled for February 6, 2023, to the Commission's next available hearing date on March 13th, 2023. We hereby likewise agreed to extend the 120-day period under section 10.5.11.2, paren 6, and paren to April 13th, 2023. Respectfully, Josh Latham.
Do we have a time?
Do you have time for that?
So I'm thinking 9 p.m. You got a busy agenda on March 13th.
Oh, why are you saying?
This is what
Well,
we're talking-
luckily, we don't have anything else on this agenda that's going to be kicked forward until then, right?
Sorry, what was that question?
Luckily, we don't have anything else on tonight's agenda that's going to be kicked over to
Not.
March 13th.
No. So, just a brief discussion. It's been a lot of continuances for 25 Haven, as I'm sure you know. Based on my discussions with them, they're very hopeful to come back before you in March with their formalized concept that they presented in the fall. They've been working and struggling with vacations and the market and so on, but they are working to get back before you. So continuances are a mutual agreement. So if you ever do want, if they request a further continuance and you want more of a substantial update, we can ask for such before agreeing.
No, things are very much in flux, so I think we just let it play out.
Yeah.
9 o'clock sounds late, seeing as how we don't have any other continues. Is there anything on the potential agenda that is for you to push it forward? Push it later in the evening?
Yes, I have 3 separate applications,
Okay.
2 subdivisions and a site plan already filed for your March agenda. So, I can flip-flop order if we wanted to, but given how this one's gone and not sure that they will be there, I'd rather try to get through the other ones that I know are coming.
Okay.
Okay.
I'll make a motion to accept their request to continue the public hearing to March 13th at 9 p.m.
Second.
Okay, and we'll take a roll call vote. John?
Yes.
Pam?
Yes.
Tony?
Yes.
And Heather, yes.
Can I grab that letter back from you?
You may.
Please. Thank you. That.
Okay. A lot of votes tonight, and now we do need to do the housing production plan update and vote. Andrew, I think I turned this over to you, correct?
Sure. So we have just nearly finalized our housing production plan. I do think I included the latest draft, which is really the final draft and final version in the drive. A quick overview of the plan. So we worked with consultant Answer Advisory and had a working group of staff and volunteer, both Katrina previously of the Cpdc and Jackie McCarthy of the Select Board, representatives from the Reading Housing Authority and others. So the plan does maintain the most recent data on the census and local demographics. It also includes the most up-to-date data we have on housing and rental markets, including the affordability requirements and components needed to qualify for affordable housing. And it also includes the most recent data on our local SHI. Actually, I shouldn't say that. Our table might have a few additions since the 2020, but we go by DHCD's in the plan public, their update from 2020. So we're tracking that. When we discussed goals and strategies in the plan, we did, after reviewing the data and other plans in general, we found 3 kind of high-level areas of focus being commented on. And one was regulatory and development, such as zoning and local development, public housing development, local action units as they're called, and other zoning changes that we could make to maybe help support housing development. One other area was funding and resources, both funding and resources needed for public housing development, and then funding and resources needed by local constituents of housing developments. So that had a lot of great info that Nicole was able to dig up and give a lot of information on in that section. She did a fantastic job. I give her all the credit in the world for helping get this to the final. And third area of focus was leadership, education, and partnerships that we can do both with local, regional, and national organizations, and then public education efforts going forward on affordable housing and housing development in general, given the current crisis that we've seen around the state and nation in general. So that's kind of the high-level overview of what's in the plan. The plan was approved by the Select Board on their January 24th meeting, and they too noted how much work is really needed to be done going forward in relation to housing development. And we've briefly touched on it before too, kind of the 3 areas we've discussed: the SHI, the MBTA communities, and then the real kind of need that housing for anybody and everybody that is affordable. So our next steps, we did submit to DHCD last week. They did note that we do need the planning board approval to really get a certified version. So if and when that happens through tonight, we will submit that record to them, and hopefully they'll give us a few minor comments, but really all is just about said and done at this point. Tony gave me a quick comment earlier on the zoning table and a potential footnote kind of hanging out on there that we'll have to look at, make sure it's either not something that needs to be noted or to be removed.
Page 35, I was wrong.
Page 35, gotcha. Cool. I'll take a look at that.
There's a lot of good data in there.
There is a lot of good data in there, between the market and then the gap on affordable income. That was quite striking to me, that analysis that was done, and just in general, some of the fair market rents to qualify that are deemed affordable housing, and just their costs today that are quite substantive. So as the Select Board and many others noted, we do have a lot of work to do to get to where we want to be, and we've done a lot of great work in the past, a lot through your board, so thank you for that, but excited to see where we can go in the future as well, and where we can help. So I'm happy to answer any and all questions and comments on this effort and plan.
Page 20. Oh, sorry. Page 29.
Sorry,
bring
let
that
me
up?
pull it up, yeah.
I'm sorry. Technically, page 28. Only odd number of pages are numbered.
Must be in the template.
Say. Am I with you?
That's not my page 28.
Might have formatted differently.
Oh, you mean page 28 of the document, not the PDF, page 28.
Good call.
It's the last page with the Reading
That one, yeah.
subsidized.
Yeah. Governor's Drive,
Yep.
2103, is that a correct year?
I will check on that. It could be because at times in the past it was not in perpetuity, and while minimum was generally 30 years, they could have been extended sometimes 80, 90, 100 years, just an odd number. But let me make sure through that deed restriction that is really 2103.
And for the one above it, what happens in 2054 when the affordability restriction disappears?
So, we would certainly in efforts be reaching out to the property owner to either just reinstate that deed restriction, or potentially it might require funding in partnership to kind of add incentive to keep that affordability. So that's where the RHA has stepped in on some cases to help provide funding to maintain affordable units that are set to expire, but they should not be the sole factor. I think through some of the strategies and recommendations on funding and resources, we mentioned some potential options to prepare funding to help not let units expire and maintain them on the SHI. While you mention it, I should make sure and confirm that Pleasant and Wilson Street did not expire. I don't believe they did, because they're on our recent 2023 SHI. But let me make sure, because that should be updated then.
I think there's a really good plan, well put together. There's a lot of good data in here. There's a lot of, sort of documenting of where we are and what we've done, and
Projections look good too.
One thing I noted, which just I think the terminology is wrong somewhere in here about the environmental justice district. It says that Reading adopted, or was a term, which doesn't.
Yeah, that would be
Reading has adopted an environmental justice district. I don't think we adopt.
No.
I think that's that just needs to be, or it needs to be changed. But I'm gonna say, not about the document itself, but about some of the data in there. It's interesting to me to note a couple of things. One is the change in population versus the change in school age population and the school population. And as you guys know, right, there's always a lot of discussion about, some of the changes in town and whether that's going to drive up school enrollment. And, so it hasn't, and it's not looking
That
like
is surprising.
it's not projecting like it's going to, which is, I think, just something to note. The other thing that I think that is important to understand as we think about how to move forward with some of these things is the dramatic change in the age of our population. Maybe the focus on, I don't know, workforce housing, maybe that's not the greatest need. Maybe it is, but it is certainly a need. But with the sort of aging of the town's population.
I agree, and it feels based on some sentiment from public discussions that aging in place and addressing those needs of the upcoming aging populations is a need and priority.
Downsizing too.
Going, yeah.
Yeah. And I guess I also, probably a topic for a different evening, but, right, as people, right, downsize, right? And is there a cohort that's gonna downsize, I'm gonna say altogether, so that it actually changes this trend of aging population? Because when one person living in a big single family house moves out and then a family moves in, right, you suddenly have this big shift. And if there's a lot of those, if that happens a lot, then this is just data. Like it's not,
I'll just say that as soon as you go predictions, everything is up in the air.
Right. But there is some, sort of understanding, are there a lot of, single family homes that are, single occupant,
Right. Absolutely.
that are likely to change. That may change what we are looking for.
Yeah, I 100% agree.
It may not. So,
Right.
yeah.
The goal is to provide the options.
Yes,
Right.
absolutely.
That's,
Yes.
yeah.
Big enough
the variety,
mix
yeah.
such that you can support workforce, you can support
Yes.
families, you can support aging in place. Which I assume is a misnomer, because the goal would not be so much to age in place in your standard 4-bedroom, 2-car garage home, but to move to some place like some sort of condo where it's taken care of for you. You're still aging in town.
Right.
Yes, that's.
And that seems to be the trend too, but I don't think we look at whether or not everybody's a postmark or the new Chronicle building. That may be the attraction.
Yep.
Or Johnson Woods.
Yeah.
Those who can
There's
afford
that,
it,
yeah.
yes.
Which those that had affordability do have local preference, whether you like that and whether or not that whole 70% was filled or not. I don't know at this point, but could get that data.
Well, it's pretty impressive, and to anybody listening at home, I mean, it's worth a read through to see what the challenges and some potential, I can't call them totally solutions, but potential ways to address the matter are.
I completely agree with that, because I think, right, whether it's, certainly with the MBTA communities, this issue is not going to get, swept under the rug.
Yep.
This is going to be front and center. The new administration, our new governor is putting this front and center. And so this is going to be a big issue.
Absolutely.
And sort of understanding everything behind it is probably important for anyone.
And I also feel like it was really timely. I mean, kind of almost lucky for us that the timing was that we were doing this now to help us inform the MBTA community's work that we have to do.
I agree.
Yeah. It's all part of the plan, right?
Yeah.
Planned it just like that.
This plan is going to be referenced so many times during those discussions, I'm sure. So.
Any other thoughts or questions from the commission or from others? I know we've got Carla, Jackie, anybody else who wants to comment or have questions about this? Okay. Are we ready to vote then?
Think so? Yes?
Yes.
So
Okay, would somebody like to make a motion?
I can do that. The motion is to approve the plan.
Is it to adopt
I would
it?
adopt.
Are we
Yeah.
adopting?
I think adopt.
Or are we
I think you're adopting it,
All right.
but yeah.
Okay, all right.
Okay. The motion is to adopt the housing production plan update with amendments.
Yep.
Yep.
Got them noted, yep.
Is there a second?
Second,
Okay, great, thank you. I'll take a roll call vote. Let's see, Pam,
Yes.
Tony,
yes.
John,
Yes.
and Heather, yes.
And thank you, everybody who contributed to this report. It's really
Yeah,
quite succinct.
Second that strongly. It was quite an effort with many twists and turns, but we got there. So appreciate it all.
Compliments.
Okay.
Okay, so now I think we need to vote to go into executive session.
You do.
We need a motion to do that. Andrew, do you happen to have a?
I wrote it word for word what Ivrea said last time. So,
Wonderful.
This is a motion to go into executive session under Purpose 3 relative to the litigation involving 459 Main Street because an open session may have a detrimental impact on the litigating position of the public body, and to invite Community Development Director Andrew McNichol and to return to open session and continue on with the meeting at the conclusion. So he needs to be queued.
yep. Those in the Zoom, I am going to put you in the waiting room now, just in case not you, Heather. The others.
Is that a motion?
Yes, it was.
There's a motion.
I'll second that.
Great, okay, so let's take a roll call vote. Pam,
Yes.
John,
Yes.
Tony,
Yes.
and Heather, yes.
Great.
Thank you. We'll see you all in hopefully not
Just a
long.
few minutes.
Yeah, should be all set.
Thanks.
Thank you.
We're good, Heather.
Okay, sorry about that. Okay, so our last agenda item are planning updates and other topics.
No, approval of
I guess-
CPDC minutes prior?
Yep, that's all under the planning updates and other topics.
All right.
Up to you, whatever you guys want to do first.
Well,
I have-
I would say do the minutes at the end so that anybody at home
I
can
agree.
basically log off and enjoy their lives.
Yep.
Yes, that's exactly where I was going. Let's do the updates and then we can do the other two sets of minutes at the end.
Okay, so they're very brief updates. Sorry, Heather, I didn't mean to interrupt you. Very brief updates. So one on the MBTA communities. We did submit our action plan before the deadline, so we do remain in interim compliance. We will now, going forward, just have to regularly prove that we are working to address the zoning. And now staff can really start diving into the data and mapping and looking at potential amendments. So I think we will take that two-pronged approach of looking at the A40 and also the S15, which might be bold and visionary, but I do think that given some of the data we have and some of the things that we've heard and knowing the need around housing, that that will be looked at extensively for moderate infill multifamily compliance. So, until we dive into the data and potentially technical assistance, which I'm still trying to find out if and when more TA will be offered. But outside of that, we'll be doing a deep dive, and I will have to, look to also schedule and plan for public engagement sessions, because the community at large, as we mentioned earlier during the HPP, should be involved. Very much so. Town meeting members, any of those that could potentially be under the district of zoning changes, population in general, select board, zoning board, CPDC, and many others. So, we do want to take that seriously and try to get ahead of any concerns and address all comments that we can. So if there's any questions on MBTA communities, I'm happy to take them real quick, but I don't have,
My only request is to work the timeline backwards. So that we know what milestones we have to meet and when.
Yeah, I 100% agree. So in the action plan, I noted April 2024 town meeting and working backwards from there. If worst comes to worst, November 2024 town meeting is acceptable as well. But I wanted to set a milestone to be ahead rather than last minute behind for December 2024.
And I applaud the effort, but we really should get back to the
November
the schedule,
changes, yeah.
November
I
changes.
do know that is, the thing. Heather got put in the waiting room, so I'm just gonna put her back in. I don't know if she meant to do that. Hello, sorry, did you mean to go in the waiting room?
No, and my internet looked out,
Okay.
so I fell off and then had to go back into the waiting room. Sorry.
No worries. I do agree with that, so we will plan accordingly as we will work backwards and plan accordingly.
I mean, having it ready in
Confidence.
June or
Right,
April
that-
is not a problem,
right.
but I really think it should go to town meeting for November.
Okay. Can do.
So the MBTA community stuff would go to town meeting in November?
November 2024.
November 2024, yes.
Okay, yeah.
Andrew wants a more aggressive schedule of April, and I say it's fine to have it done, but I'd like to get back to the schedule of November is zoning changes,
Typically zoning, yes. Yep.
because the budgets run forever.
They do. Okay, yep, I'll plan accordingly for that. So, Some other small updates. So admittedly, I don't know too much about this topic yet, and I haven't seen it on the recent select board agendas, but the chair has brought up a few times a master plan or community development plan or similar initiative, and
May I jump in?
Yes,
Jump in
please.
on that, Andrew, because I want to be really careful. I don't think what the chair of the select board is talking about is a master plan or community development plan. My understanding is what he's talking about, and I think is maybe it will be on an upcoming select board agenda, is a strategic plan for the town as an entity. So not just where will we develop, but, you know, okay, maybe part of it will be, is building affordable housing a priority, or is running a senior center a priority, is building a new bike path a priority. I just made that up. So I'm just kind of pulling that out of thin air. I think I'm glad you mentioned this, because I think that's the ilk of the strategic plan, I think, that is being discussed.
And if I could just jump in, this is Jackie McCarthy. I think that's consistent with what we've heard from Mark Doxer, and just for what it's worth, in our last packet for our meeting last week on the 7th, we have discussion of strategic plan for Reading on our tentative agenda for our next meeting on February 21st. I believe the agenda will be out this Thursday, the 16th.
Great.
And my sense is that Cpdc, the views from Cpdc will be really important in the town-wide strategic planning. Our events important, community planning and more. And if anybody has thoughts that are coming to them right now and they want to share them, now would be a good time. I don't know yet what the process will be like, because this hasn't been discussed by the select board yet, so that we can keep an eye on. And I know this commission will, and the views of this commission will certainly factor into it.
I agree. So thank you for that clarification, because I did just want to put it out there for you guys to start thinking about for if and when this comes forward into light. And I think it'll be a great thing for public engagement, where we haven't seen as much in recent efforts like the HPP and specific planning items themselves. The topic of a strategic plan, I think, captures eyes and attention more, so it will help fill in some gaps that we've had along the way, at least my personal opinion.
How old is the town master plan?
2004, I think. Yeah. So I think it was brought up in 2018, a new master plan, but at the time, and not to go down the trail of master plan, because I know that's not what we're talking, but we had so many updates, planning updates of housing production plan, MVP, economic development plan, that we kind of covered it in just separate plans and areas, that it didn't reach the highest priority. So that's where now it's evolving into the strategic plan that Heather mentioned.
And I guess with Jackie, this may be premature, but with Jackie and Carla both on, if either of you have a sense at this point of how we can be helpful in, taking certain questions for discussion at our meetings, I'm all ears. It may be premature for that. Maybe we just need to see what the discussion of the select board is like and take it from there.
I agree. I think it's a little early. We have been dancing around this subject, for several months, and we just want to be careful, how we word it, and I personally don't want to form another committee that was initially tossed around. So I think it's good that we look towards the future, but how do we do that, and who do we involve? And of course, you're this board that you guys are on is very important to that, and other boards as well. I'm not going to speak for Jackie, but we haven't really had an in-depth discussion about this. We've just been kind of talking on the edges. Thanks.
Thanks, Carla.
Thank you, Carla.
All right.
Thank you all. So the other item is just as you are aware and can see, our quorum
Yeah.
is stretched thin right now. So you're a 6-member board with 4 right now. Well, 5-member
Five-member,
board,
one
one
associate.
associate. Yep. And
To that effect, if I could let Carlo and Jackie know, if it makes life easier to get an additional member, I would move up to a full member if somebody wanted to come in as an associate member, feeling that maybe a full member is too much pressure.
duly noted. Heather's done a very good job outreaching, and we do plan to take your comment of newspaper ad, do that as well, if it helps at all. So we are planning for that. So, it's tough to ask you guys to be at every meeting because life, right? But if going forward, if you look at the schedule and know in advance of just a potentially tough date, just let me know until we fill the gaps of the open seats in. Just because, a lot of your votes do only require 3 out of 5, but generally the more the better in fairness and openness to all. The select board and many others have been campaigning for volunteers. You're not the only board with empty seats right now, so we're on it, and there's some potential people that we've tapped in the past that I hope to kind of see if their time and schedule works out now for potential volunteering. So
Instead of an ad, I would recommend this article in the newspaper.
yes, we are doing that as well, I think, where we've outreached for potential.
Haven't seen one yet.
Not
No,
yet.
I've been watching for it too.
We do want to highlight the concerns and the needs of these committees and how important and vital they are in an article. I think that would help a lot. So, and that kind of dovetails nicely into remote meetings going forward. So I believe the ability to allow the board to attend remotely, which you guys haven't really done, that could potentially close in late March, unless it's extended by the legislation and legislators. So a number of planners have been campaigning that they certainly either extend it or make it permanent remote-only meetings, or remote capabilities for board members. And the legislators seem surprised by that ask based on some of the comments I've seen. So just be aware that if that does expire in March, that you may need to look to attend in person, or I believe open meeting law is that 1 to 2 can attend remotely, but not a majority. I plan to fully keep hybrid meetings going forward, just because 1, you guys are great about attending in person, and 2, if the public can attend remotely with no constraints, then I don't see why we wouldn't. But
Given the opportunity for the public to attend remotely, even if the entire board has to be in person, I think is a benefit to all.
Me too.
Absolutely.
I agree, and it's fairly easy to run and manage. So
Right, but I think, if we look at the aging population that we have and the number of items that come up that impact them, I absolutely think they should be able to Zoom in.
great, fully agree. So I will.
This is anecdotal, I suppose. Maybe Andrew, you've been keeping numbers, but I'd say look at the participation over the last year, where even tonight we have a lot of members of the public who can join on remotely. I'm talking to the choir right now. Project proponents who can present remotely. It's saving money. The last consultant was a consultant to the town. It might be worth fellow commission members, fellow select board members to drop a line to our state senator and state representatives to, in your own words, say why this is useful for public engagement and for cost effectiveness of running the town. Am I allowed to say that?
You are. And so just again, to be clear, even if open meeting that expires, there's nothing that prohibits the public from attending remotely if we allow the ability. It really, that law and language relates to the board members. So
Okay, that's good to know. All right.
some towns do still do all remote meetings, which is why it's important to them for their members to stay members. And anything we can do to help keep you guys here right now. So anyways, that's that topic. Just a quick note on that. So I think that's it on my planning updates tonight and other topics.
Any questions from the committee?
No?
No, I think we're good.
Okay, should we take a look at those other two sets of minutes since it's not midnight?
Sure thing.
Well, we have the time to do.
So Tony and Pam again got me comments on the 10:17 and 11:7 minutes. I'll pull up the 10:17 now, though, for any additional. Admittedly, I did not make it to the 12:12, so they weren't in your drive, so we don't have to worry about those yet. Thank you, Carlo. Have a good night.
Thanks, Carla.
Good night, thanks.
Night.
Nothing for me for the minutes of November 7th, and I am not gonna vote on the other ones because I wasn't there, unless I have to.
Okay, and I read through them and I don't have anything further.
You're at October 17th.
It says I
It
wasn't.
says you weren't, but you were.
Oh, but you're quoted, but you know what, you're in the,
He is quoted because.
you're.
Oh, there it
copying the
was.
meeting,
I
so there's a
read these
difference in the
before. It
choice.
does say there I arrived at 7:55. I read these last meeting, and
Yes, you
I'm
did.
just fine with them.
Okay,
Some of your
I
comments.
do remember that. Remember saying, wait, I'm not here, and then it's like, wait, I commented, how could I not be there?
Good catch.
Because I wasn't at 10:17, I was thinking, I shouldn't vote.
Oh.
And I'm going, wait a minute, if now nobody can vote.
Yeah.
10:17, I have no additional comments that I have not already made, if I made any, which I don't remember.
So does that mean we're all set? I think so.
All
Oh.
set.
okay,
You're
Yeah.
right.
Yeah.
Yes, it does. Yep, good call.
Alright.
Just a motion for both. You can do both in one.
So that's the 3 sets of meetings?
Two.
Two.
10-17 and 11-7. I don't have 12-12 ready for you.
Okay, move to approve CPDC minutes of 10/17/22 and 11/7/22 as amended.
I'll second.
okay, so do a roll call, Tony,
Yes.
Pam,
Yes,
John,
Yes.
and Heather, yes. Okey dokey. I think we're done with our business.
I think you are.
Wow, 9:18.
Told you, don't get used to this stuff.
Next
Motion
month,
to
so we
adjourn?
have an agenda item at 9.
Yep.
So,
Right back to it.
motion to adjourn?
Second?
favor?
Aye.
Yes.
You're good.
Yeah.
Well, thank you, Heather. Enjoy DC while you're there.
It got warm, it's nice here, yeah.
Nice.
Yeah, it's been like, I mean,